If you blink, you might miss one of the most fascinating stories unfolding in women's tennis right now. Just days after capturing the biggest title of her young professional career, Alexandra Eala is back on court, and the spotlight has never been brighter. The Filipino star arrives at the National Bank Open carrying enormous momentum after lifting her first WTA Tour Singles trophy, a breakthrough that instantly transformed expectations surrounding her season. Now, instead of celebrating that milestone for weeks, she's facing a completely different challenge, proving that her rise wasn't just one unforgettable week, but the beginning of something much bigger. Standing across the net is Alycia Parks, one of the most explosive hitters on the WTA Tour. When Parks finds her rhythm, few players can match the sheer pace of her serve and ground strokes. She has built a reputation for fearless, high-risk tennis, a style capable of overwhelming almost anyone on the right day. And that's exactly why this matchup has captured so much attention. This isn't simply another opening round contest at a prestigious WTA 1000 event. It's a collision between confidence and power, between momentum and redemption, between a player trying to prove she belongs among the sport's elite and an opponent who already knows she can beat her. Few fans have forgotten their previous meeting earlier this season, where Parks recovered after dropping the opening set to defeat Eala in a dramatic comeback. That result still lingers in the background, adding another intriguing layer to a rivalry that suddenly feels far more significant than their rankings alone might suggest. But tennis moves fast, very fast. The Alexandra Eala walking onto court today is not the same player who experienced that disappointment months ago. Her recent performances have dramatically changed the conversation. The confidence, composure, and belief she displayed during her championship run have convinced many observers that she's entering a completely new phase of her career. Every match now carries greater expectations, and every opponent approaches her with a different level of respect. For Parks, however, this presents an opportunity of her own. There's no better way to silence the excitement surrounding a rising star than by defeating her on one of the biggest stages outside the Grand Slams. Parks understands that a victory here would not only send her into the next round, it would remind everyone that experience and raw firepower remain dangerous combinations. So what should fans expect? Will Eala continue the incredible momentum that has turned her into one of the hottest names on tour? Or will Parks' aggressive first-strike tennis once again disrupt the Filipino sensation's rhythm? The answers won't come from headlines or predictions. They'll come point by point, game by game, under the pressure that only elite tennis can create. And as this match begins, one thing is already clear. Both players have far more at stake than simply advancing to the next round. Because sometimes the most important victories aren't measured by trophies. They're measured by what they prove. And for Alexandra Eala and Alycia Parks, that story is only just beginning. The opening exchanges immediately revealed the contrast that made this matchup so compelling. On one side of the court stood Alexandra Eala, a player whose recent success has been built on patience, court awareness, and remarkable composure under pressure. She rarely looks rushed. Instead, she constructs points with purpose, using angles and depth to force opponents into uncomfortable positions before striking at the right moment. Across the net, Alycia Parks brought an entirely different philosophy. Her game is built around initiative. From the first serve to the first forehand, Parks looks to dictate. She wants short rallies. She wants quick winners. Most importantly, she wants to take time away from her opponent before they can settle into a rhythm. That contrast made every service game feel like a battle of identities. Whenever Parks stepped a line, the pressure immediately shifted to Eala's return game. A strong first serve from Parks could instantly put the American in control of the rally. But if Eala managed to neutralize that opening shot, the dynamic changed just as quickly. Suddenly, the point became a chess match instead of sprint. Few players on the WTA Tour are more comfortable extending rallies than Eala. Throughout her recent breakthrough run, she consistently demonstrated an impressive willingness to absorb pace before redirecting it with precision. Rather than matching power with power, she often relies on timing, placement, and intelligent shot selection. That ability has become one of the defining characteristics of her rise. Against Parks, however, that strategy faces one of its toughest tests. Power can erase tactics. One clean winner can undo an entire sequence of smart defensive positioning. That's why every return game carried enormous significance. If Eala could consistently get serves back into play, she would increase her chances of exposing longer rallies where her court coverage and decision-making become valuable assets. But if Parks landed a high percentage of first serves, the balance could swing rapidly in the opposite direction. Another fascinating element, centered on the mental side of the contest. Momentum in tennis is fragile. One spectacular hold can energize a player. One difficult break of serve can completely change the emotional landscape of a match. That psychological battle becomes even more important when both competitors understand exactly what's at stake. For Eala, this wasn't simply another appearance at a WTA 1000 tournament. It was another opportunity to answer a question that every breakout star eventually faces. Can you keep winning after the biggest moment of your career? History shows that this transition is rarely easy. Winning a major title, or in Eala's case, capturing a career-defining WTA singles championship, often brings entirely new challenges. Expectations rise overnight. Opponents prepare differently. Every match suddenly carries greater attention from fans, media, and analysts. The pressure doesn't disappear after lifting a trophy. In many ways, it begins there. That's why so many observers were watching Eala's body language just as closely as her shot making. Would she play with the same freedom that carried her through Washington? Would confidence replace nerves? Or would the emotional and physical demands of the previous week begin to show? Those questions couldn't be answered before the first ball was struck. Only competition could reveal them. Meanwhile, Parks entered with a different mindset. She wasn't chasing a breakthrough narrative. Instead, she had an opportunity to interrupt someone else's. Players often speak about embracing the role of spoiler, and this match offered exactly that chance. Defeating one of the tour's hottest players would instantly change the conversation surrounding the tournament. Instead of discussing Eala's momentum, everyone would be talking about Parks' statement victory. That possibility added another layer of intensity. Every point mattered. Every hold of serve mattered. Every missed opportunity carried extra weight. As the match progressed, another tactical theme became increasingly important. Shot selection under pressure. Aggressive tennis is exciting, but it comes with risk. Players who consistently attack the lines accept that some shots will miss by inches. The challenge is maintaining confidence after those mistakes without becoming reckless. For Parks, finding that balance was essential. For Eala, the objective was almost the opposite. She needed to remain disciplined, avoid giving away cheap points, and trust that extended exchanges would eventually create openings. Those contrasting philosophies transformed each rally into more than just a contest of strokes. They became contests of patience versus urgency, calculation versus instinct, consistency versus explosive firepower. And as the pressure continued to build, it became increasingly clear that the eventual winner would need more than talent alone. They would need composure when the biggest moments arrived. Because in matches like these, the difference between victory and defeat often comes down to just a handful of points. And those defining moments were still waiting to unfold. As the match moved deeper, the conversation shifted from pure shot-making to something even more important, adaptation. At this level of professional tennis, very few matches are won by sticking to the original game plan from start to finish. Elite players constantly read the court, recognize patterns, and make adjustments. Sometimes those changes are obvious. Other times, they're so subtle that only coaches and experienced analysts notice them. That's what made this contest so intriguing. Alexandra Eala's recent success has not been built solely on clean ball striking. One of the biggest reasons behind her rapid rise has been her ability to solve problems during matches. Rather than forcing low-percentage shots, she has often shown the patience to identify what is and isn't working before making tactical adjustments. Against a player like Alycia Parks, that skill becomes invaluable. When Parks is serving confidently and attacking early in rallies, opponents don't get many opportunities to settle. The challenge is staying mentally engaged even when points end quickly. A string of winners from Parks can make any opponent feel like the match is slipping away. That's where Eala's composure has become one of her greatest strengths. Throughout her recent breakthrough performances, she demonstrated an ability to leave the previous point behind, whether it ended in a spectacular winner or an unfortunate error. That emotional stability is often what separates rising stars from established contenders. But staying composed doesn't automatically guarantee success. The tactical battle remains just as important. One area that analysts frequently watch is return positioning. Against a powerful server, standing too close can leave almost no reaction time. Standing too far back, however, can give the server even more control over the next shot. Finding the right balance is one of the most difficult decisions in modern tennis, especially against an opponent capable of producing pace from both wings. Another key factor is shot tolerance. Simply put, how many quality shots can a player produce before taking a calculated risk? Eala has shown that she's comfortable building points over several exchanges, waiting patiently for the right opening. Parks, meanwhile, often looks to create that opening much earlier, trusting her power to end rallies before her opponent can take control. Neither approach is inherently better. Success depends on execution. When aggressive tennis is clicking, it can look almost unstoppable. When consistency and defensive discipline take over, even the biggest hitters can become frustrated. That's why this matchup felt like a fascinating clash of philosophies rather than just a meeting between two talented players. The broader significance of this match also extends beyond a single tournament. For Alexandra Eala, every appearance now contributes to the next chapter of her career. Winning a first WTA singles title is a remarkable achievement, but maintaining that level over months and eventually years is what defines the sport's true elite. The history of women's tennis is filled with players who produced unforgettable breakthrough moments. The challenge has always been sustaining them. Can a player handle higher expectations? Can they recover physically after deep tournament runs? Can they continue improving once opponents begin studying every aspect of their game? Those are the questions that every emerging star must answer over time. This match represents another opportunity in that ongoing process, not because one result will define Eala's future, but because every high-level contest adds another layer to her development. For Parks, the stakes are meaningful in a different way. Players with explosive power often walk a fine line between brilliance and inconsistency. When everything is flowing, they can overwhelm nearly anyone. But maintaining that level from one tournament to the next is one of the toughest challenges on tour. A strong performance against an informed opponent can provide the kind of confidence that carries into future events. That's why encounters like this are so compelling. They're about far more than advancing to the next round. They're about momentum. They're about belief. They're about proving, to yourself as much as anyone else, that your game belongs at the highest level. As the match continued to unfold, every game seemed to reinforce one undeniable truth. Neither player was willing to back down. One relied on intelligent construction, movement, and patience. The other trusted fearless aggression and the ability to seize control with a single swing. Only one approach could prevail on this day. But regardless of the final outcome, the match offered another reminder of why the WTA Tour continues to captivate tennis fans around the world. It is unpredictable. It is emotionally demanding. And on any given day, momentum can change in an instant. That unpredictability is exactly what makes matches like Alexandra Eala versus Alycia Parks impossible to ignore. The final chapter, however, would reveal an even bigger story. What this result means for both players moving forward, and why its impact could extend well beyond this tournament. As the final stages of the match approached, the immediate question was obvious: who would advance? But the more meaningful question reached far beyond one result. What does this performance say about where Alexandra Eala and Alycia Parks are headed next? For Eala, the answer has never depended on a single match. The past several months have demonstrated that her game is evolving. Her movement, point construction, and growing confidence against top-level opponents have fueled increasing belief that she can compete consistently on some of the biggest stages in women's tennis. Her recent WTA title only strengthened that narrative, but sustaining it will require continued consistency against a wide range of playing styles. That is why matches like this carry so much value. They test every aspect of a player's development. Can they recover after an emotional championship run? Can they adjust to new opponents with different strengths? Can they embrace the pressure that naturally follows a breakthrough? Those are questions that cannot be answered in practice sessions. They can only be answered in competition. For Alycia Parks, This contest represented an equally important opportunity. Players with her style often force opponents into uncomfortable decisions. When her serve is clicking and her ground strokes are finding the lines, she has the ability to dictate play against virtually anyone. The challenge, as with many aggressive players, is sustaining that level over the course of an entire tournament. A strong performance here would serve as another reminder that she remains a dangerous opponent capable of disrupting even the hottest players on tour. And that's one of the reasons women's tennis continues to evolve in exciting ways. The depth of talent means there are very few easy matches. A player arriving with momentum may suddenly find themselves facing an opponent whose style presents a completely different set of problems. That's exactly what made Eala versus Parks such a compelling matchup. It wasn't simply about rankings. It wasn't simply about recent form. It was about contrasting identities on the court. One player seeking to build on a career-changing breakthrough. The other looking to remind everyone why her explosive game can change the outcome of any match. No matter which side fans supported, they witnessed a contest that highlighted the mental and tactical complexity of professional tennis. Power alone isn't enough. Defense alone isn't enough. The players who consistently succeed are the ones who can blend strategy, execution, resilience, and adaptability under pressure. That's the standard required at the highest level of the WTA Tour. And both Alexandra Eala and Alycia Parks continue to chase that standard every time they step onto the court. As this tournament continues, attention will naturally turn to the next challenge. Can the winner build on this performance and carry that momentum into the later rounds? Will this match become another stepping stone in a remarkable season, or will it simply be remembered as one chapter in a much longer journey? Only time will provide those answers. But one thing is certain. Women's tennis continues to produce fresh storylines, emerging stars, established challengers, and unforgettable battles that remind us why the sport remains so captivating. Today's match was another example of that unpredictability. Every point mattered. Every adjustment mattered. Every decision carried weight. And in the end, that's what keeps fans coming back. Because no script can fully capture the drama that unfolds once the first ball is struck. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more in-depth coverage of the biggest stories in tennis, from rising stars to championship showdowns, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us for our next analysis. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.